So you see that? It's your boy Quan, but more importantly, the servers are down right now, but we'll get to that in a second. This patch is a huge patch for cameos. Let me go through the patch notes right now that actually change characters, and the most important ones, I'll show you a demonstration. In terms of main character balance, they were not joking in the Kombat cast that this was not aimed at main characters at all, but so many cameos got buffed. Some main characters had things tweaked that were bugs apparently that essentially buffed them, but one of the characters that did get changed is Reptile. I'm hearing from a lot of Reptile mains that they didn't want this buff. Essentially, you could cancel this overhead into a cameo like that. I don't know what I'm doing with Sonya exactly, but yeah. He can start the charge and not commit to it. He can now cancel into a cameo move if he does it during the startup, just like that. The only other main character to get buffed outright where an actual move change was made, not just a bug fix, is Sub-Zero, and he got 2 buffs. Back 2-2. Now, in between the first hit and the second hit, there is 1 less frame in between for a gap, so less time to react for the second one if you're going for your overhead low mix-ups. And the second hit has 1 more active frame, so you either have to hit block longer, his swing gets a little deeper, you might even have more time to jump up like this because there is 1 more active frame that it lands, and so you can jump. So that's pretty cool. The other change is with Sub-Zero's Ice Clone, but here's where we enter the weird predicament. When I do it, right, it does the old Ice Clone. The new one, you will spend a bar of meter for each extra clone you want on the screen. So you'll get the second clone for 1 bar and the third clone for 2 bars. The servers were up after the update for about an hour or 2, and they got sporadically taken down, and they've been down for hours now. I think it's alright if I talk about this because you can't sign on and do it, but I have 2 theories as to why it just got taken down hard. The first is the obvious one. If you went into invasions in that first hour or 2 and selected Season 2's map, you unlocked every item. Just straight up unlocked it. So, yeah, I'm sure NetherRealm pulled the plug right there, but the other thing that I have to think is maybe they forgot to put in Quan Chi's damage. He has abysmally low damage. He does have mix-ups, he has cool combos, he has launchers for days, and he works really well with a lot of cameos, but he doesn't do a lot of damage. We'll do like full combo and Quan Chi parts at the end, but just look at how long this combo and how many bars of meter it takes, and look at the damage. So what? 35%, but that cost Quan Chi 2 bars. And you might be thinking, oh Diff, you don't have it optimal yet. There might be cameos that can make that more optimal, but as a base character, there's only one thing I could have added for 1 extra percent, and that's after this move right here. I add this into jump. It's just a tighter window at the end of that combo because the gravity is so high with all the launches. Three-bar combo, by the way. 35% as well. And it's like, I can go down all these combo routes, which I will at the end. I don't want to, like, you know, mix up where I'm going. I want to do patch notes. You just can't get a lot. I'll show you more with the actual cameo. Like, we can use Scorpion right here to get some pretty cool stuff, but it just scales so hard for absolutely no reason, it feels like. Like, you have to avoid using this. I don't know why this is 2 bars. So, maybe, not only did invasions not get fixed and you can unlock everything, Quan Chi doesn't have the correct damage numbers because I got the game early access. Like before even the early access thing, I played the game early as a partnership with WB. Scorpion in that build had damage like this. Like his damage was 5 to 7% lower, and then as soon as the day 1 patch came, his damage was buffed up really high. Like I thought he was going to be bottom tier, and he wasn't. But the weird thing was, when they did the Kombat cast Scorpion, which happened a month or 2 before I got the game, had the day 1 patch damage. So there is 2 versions of the game, apparently to me with that example, that cycle through, because there was no reason I should have gotten a digital version from WB that had damage numbers that were outdated from something 2 months prior. Like, it came out before even that. So, I don't know, I think Quan's damage will be buffed. Sorry that was long-winded. But that's also why you can't sign on all day. Where we get into the big leagues is practically every cameo got buffed. I'm not even joking you. I think Striker, Serena, and Jax are the only cameos that didn't get touched at all. So easily top 5 most used cameos, and then Lao cameo got nerfed, and pretty much everyone else got buffed. Let's go through the actual notes. Cyrax, Cybernet now drains meter from the opponent while they are trapped until they are hit or released. So Cyrax now gets Serena's ability. That's crazy. Cybernet also no longer does an alternate hit reaction when done as a wake up or reversal. Next up is Darius. Darius gets a completely new move. It's just the second part of his ability where he flies up in the air, lands on you, and then goes for the overhead that launches, except this one, hard knockdowns instead, and it only costs half your cameo gauge. Eat Dirt can now be delayed for a slightly longer duration. After executing the double whammy, the recharge delay is slightly shorter, and the recharge rate has been increased. So double whammy is going to come back quicker every time you use it. If you didn't know, in this game, Lao Hat is a perfect example. Different moves from cameos cause the recharge rate to do different things. After executing double Dagon kick, the recharge delay is slightly shorter and the recharge rate has been increased, so another buff to Darius recovery. After executing twister kicks, the recharge delay is shorter. After executing volley ballistic, the recharge rate has been increased. Frost. Snowflakes now begin traveling 10 frames faster and last for 20 more frames, and had its collision slightly adjusted. Frost obviously was the greatest in the beta and got outshined since then. That is amazing for her. Goro, after executing Punch Walk, the recharge delay is slightly longer and the recharge rate has been increased. I don't really get this one. I don't see Punch Walk all that often, but I'll test it out myself and see. And then it says the third hit of Punch Walk now recovers 5 frames faster and causes 10 more frames of block stun with increased pushback on block. And then Punch Walk no longer has an extended recovery for the main fighter if Goro is interrupted. So another buff. I think all around this will even out to a buff. We just need the servers back online so I can demonstrate. Kano, Eye Laser is now a mid, does 10 more damage, and does increased damage on block. Yeah, just the laser got a mega buff. That's crazy, because you can't duck it, so you're blocking all that chip every single time. Kung Lao, increased Buzzsaw main fighter recovery on block by 5 frames. The issue I have with this nerf is it only affects certain characters, and I don't think it deals with all the issues. What, is Kenshi just gonna run more rampant with Sub-Zero, and Johnny's gonna take a slight hit? Even though Johnny is just fine without Lao cameo. Johnny was fine with Cyrax cameo. Johnny's fine with Striker cameo. So I don't know if this really cures it, but it does take away from some of the annoyance that Johnny Cage had, always being plus, Omni-Man always throwing down Lao Hat being plus, a lot of these characters taking back plus frames. What's funny is that change is solely based on Johnny. Johnny has a 6-frame poke and got +2 with the Lao Hat. So now, Johnny will be -3. The problem is, if you left that at -2, he could technically beat some of the slower poking characters like Melina in this game, who have an 8-frame poke. So they made sure to stick that at -3 so Johnny can't poke out of it. Motaro, a big one, and I think will be a secret high tier for Scorpion, along with Sector, Scorpion, and some others, but after executing Reflect and moving Reflect, the recharge rate has been increased, so it incentivizes you to use it. After executing Tail Shot, the recharge delay is slightly shorter and the recharge rate has been increased. So does Motaro become the new Kung Lao with a +13 on block Tail Whip that will recharge even faster? We wait to see, but I'm happy about it because I know they won't put anything to Lao level again, so I'm not too worried. Adjusted Tail Shot collision size, and it now causes 10 more frames of block stun with increased pushback on block. It went from +3 to +13 with increased recharge rate. So watch out, Motaro was probably the least picked cameo outside of Shujinko. We are about to see a lot of Motaros because a lot of characters, especially people like Scorpion, are going to excel, or anybody who doesn't have a safe special move. Scorpion cameo, after executing Get Over Here, the recharge delay is slightly shorter and the recharge rate has been increased. That's the one where Scorpion pulls you full screen. That's a good quality of life change. The big one, Hellblades recover 16 frames faster on block and 5 frames faster on miss. Overhead Scorpion cameo is now safe on block. So Melina, Li Mei, a lot of these characters that excelled using Scorpion for the combos, and people like Melina, who it was a risk to go for the low overhead mix using Scorpion or letting the low string rock, it's no longer a risk. It's just a guess. Sector cameo, a big one for everyone. I feel like Sector works with every character in the cast. Flamethrower first hit starts up 5 frames faster and has 10 more frames of block stun with less pushback though on block. But that's kind of good because I'm assuming Flamethrower's frames are going to be very good where you want to be close and hopefully take your turn first. And then Flamethrower's second hit now has an up block vulnerability, comes out on block or miss, and has 10 more frames of block stun with increased pushback on block. That one part is the only thing that hurts him, because if he didn't have that, this move is going to be really oppressive. It's going to be as bad as Serena, except it does have a counter. It has that gap. When it says up block vulnerability, think of that as a gap. So yes, it can be up blocked and Sector can be punished, or you can probably poke out of it. We're not quite sure yet, we gotta see, but usually up block vulnerability means a gap is right there. But everything else comes out so quick and has so little recovery, the Sector pressure is gonna be insane. It's gonna be a lot like MKX. We'll see. I know they put in that gap to not make it too crazy, but I want to test it out. Shujinko cameo. Do I even go into this? Increase base health value to 400 from 300. So then we go to Sonya. Leg grab now has up block vulnerability and recovers 18 frames faster on block or miss. That's pretty good. So they're making the move more reliable. It's not going to be punishable probably, but you can up block it for your punish. So that's really good. People will probably use it more. It's not as risky. You need to hit that up block on it. Energy rings now hit mid and has slightly increased damage scaling and increased main fighter recovery on block by 5 frames. So here's the bad thing for Sonya. Even though energy rings is a mid, it might not be all good for her. Slightly increased damage scaling. And you know how many people use Sonya combos? It's the same thing in the air. When you use it in the air, it counts as the same thing. So they're toning down Sonya damage and then increase main character fighter recovery on block by 5 frames. Meaning you're not going to just throw out these rings in like up in somebody's face. It's really just meant to be in the neutral where the opponent can't duck it anymore. And Sonya actually has some zoning power. Tremor cameo, base health went up from 300 to 400. All right, it's already 3:30 and servers still aren't up. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you guys some Quan Chi stuff. And if the servers come back online, I'll include all of the cameo moves. I might even throw them in when I was actually reading the patch notes. We'll see what makes more sense. Let's show you some Quan Chi tech. So do you notice something pretty crazy right here? And no, your eyes don't deceive you. It's right there up at the top. Yeah, Quan Chi is a 900 health character. This starter costs 2 bars, which is already rough. There's other launchers, but it's something to think about because it is his overhead low mix, essentially. But also his overhead low mix isn't quite as good as we thought it was now. Next up, outside of health, other things that Quan Chi has rough. Quan Chi only gets an 8-frame startup jab. To compare that, almost all characters in the game have a jab that is 7 frames. So Quan Chi might be the only one. There might be one other character with an 8-frame jab. On top of that, when we scroll through here, there are 0+ frames. So you are not using strike throw with this character. This one is plus. You're thinking, oh, it's +8. I'll show you the move. It's the overhead, and it's +8 if you hold it that long. So of course, the opponent should interrupt this. If you don't hold it all the way, it's -12 on block. So fully punishable as an overhead. And the weirdest part is that one doesn't even launch the opponent. The -12 one has no launch. It just looks like this. Just does that. His archetype is very clearly mix-ups, zoning, and then spacing, which is why he has all the abilities that push you away or trap you at distance. He's really a set play character. He doesn't really want to be up close to you. Also why he has such far-reaching special moves and normals. The next terrible thing about Quan Chi, further proving you don't want to be anywhere near your opponent. Down 1 is -10 on block. I don't know if I've ever seen that. Melina's might be -10. I have never seen something like that. Down 1 is punishable by, like, actually high damage moves. Like, there's down 1s in the game that are 8 frames that get punished by a 6-frame jab or whatever, but it's the weakest combo route for that character. -10, there's some starters that are going to be doing some serious damage. Think of anybody with a 9-frame mid. Mids usually do more damage. Yeah. Furthering this archetype that he's not rushing you down at all, this is Quan Chi's only mid, and you might think, oh, that looks all right. Look at that range, you know? It has to be special canceled after 1 move. Otherwise, it's just a hard knockdown. So you better confirm it just like that. On top of that, it's 14-frame startup, which just isn't very good. I know it has range, but there are longer range mids like Kenchi's that just have better startup frames. You're not going to be using the mid a whole lot unless you want to do the mid-mid, and it probably has tons of pushback. Alright, but now that we're through the glaring bad, and I think that Quan's damage is going to be increased, I'm just holding in hope. Let's look at some of the good. He has a low starter, which is really, really nice. I'll turn it on so you can actually see. His 2-1, 4-4, You can do overhead, overhead to end it, or you can do 2-1-3 to end in a low. And this has like 80 mind games to it. Like, so watch this. So if we go, let's just say we're gonna do the overhead. We cancel into the low at the end, so it's not overhead, overhead. But you just think, oh, that's just a mix-up at the end for a combo. That makes sense. Well, there's a mix-up before that as well, especially if you use a character like Scorpion as your cameo. Instead of going for the overhead string, we could go for the low. The low might not look like it can combo, but if we call in Scorpion, it was a bad combo, I dropped it. But yeah, we have two different spots that you mix up for combos in one single string. And it's not even a terrible string. Super basic, 25%. I didn't have to spend any bar, one cameo. I didn't even have to think about it. You could optimize that. I haven't practiced that route yet. This overhead launch is good, but I haven't really found myself using it right at the beginning because you run out of things to do because again, what are you gonna do? Spend the 2-bar version right here? Because if you do this one, you cannot get this launch right here to land, which is his third launcher that isn't a regular button launcher. This is actually a launcher as well, but it's weird. You can't really hit anything afterwards. You have to jump or call a cameo. We don't actually know if something like this would be better. Super basic yet again. I haven't really practiced. I've only literally played 5 minutes, so. His combos are pretty basic, by the way. You're gonna look at his move list and be super overwhelmed because he has a lot of those close, medium, far, very far special moves. It's not too difficult. Or doing this one where you don't use Scorpion, you just kind of jump up with him. It's still gonna cost you 2 bars a meter, no matter what. And that even drops. But by the way, 20% damage, and I had already spent 2 bars. 2 bars. Even with the Scorpion combo, I got 25%. That was 1 cameo, 2 bars. Damage isn't in his favor at the moment. This special move right here, I'm having trouble not spending all my meter like this to get a combo. Like, yeah, that does 35%, but it's not 3 bar 35%. So I think, just maybe, you might have to take Scorpion here. That wasn't great. It did about the same damage, but it does take less bar. Okay, so you're gonna want Scorpion if you wanna make those conversions work for more damage. There might be other cameos that can do that as well, something like that. But to combo in the mid-screen with this move right here, you're gonna want Scorpion. And you could probably do more. We could probably get the tongue going and stuff like that. This leads me to, I think the main goal with Quan is just to always have these out. Because that's where you get all of this stuff that grants him more damage. And, you know, I guess you could spend the bar for the one that, you know, gets the opponent away. But I don't know. I think you're always going to want this to get all that extra damage. I didn't do anything, but if you have the opponent cornered, that starts to rack up quickly. It also, remember, makes your projectile a launch. Which, I dropped it, but again, it seems like you need it on screen. So, base Quan is going to have not that much damage if it's not, like, getting pit changed. Doesn't have that much damage, and he costs a whole ton of meter. Once you get this out, hopefully we find routes where that all changes, you know? Before I go into the portal ones, when you're in the corner, you can combo on this one without, you know, Scorpion or anything. Just a basic one, and that does 281. It's like everything scales this man so hard if he just doesn't do everything in like 6 hits. But if we get portal out, what does this do? That doesn't land, but it was only at 236, and I had to set up portal. Would it be like this? What does that do? 31? It feels better than that. It feels better than that. It's just, I don't know. Like, if in tomorrow's video, I'll leave, like, comment descriptions. Because I'm worried things will get changed if I just go ahead and I put things on screen, like, if properties change. And also, the character's pretty basic. Like, if you get on and play him, you don't really need the button guides because you only use a few moves. This is 3, like stand 3. This is your back 3 for the low starter. And this right here, that's just your string. That's back 3, 4, 2. So it's a 3-button string and it just launches for you automatically. And then you go into 1, 3 for the overhead launch. That overhead launch is not a special move. You're like this, 1, 3, stand 4. And the only special move you use is at the very end. So this kick right here, that's just stand 4. So yeah, this one is all normals right here, up until the end. Until you get right there, That's normals only. And this is just down back forward for the launch, and you amplify it. So you'll get the hang of it really quickly. It's just weird. It's just weird. We'll see how I go tomorrow online. A couple last minute things that people were talking about. If you take sub, he might be one of the best cameos because you can freeze, call this, and begin your work. And look at that, that's already more damage. It's kind of the way Scorpion works with like Sub and Sector getting extra damage instead of using Spear right away. The issue though with Sub is you lose the Scorpion launch, so I'm not... Do you spend the 2 extra bars here or just go for the air combos? I dropped it. That was actually first attempt though. I got pretty close for not even knowing how to do it. Did I get it? Yeah, so I didn't get it right. You can do it better, but if you want to get a throw combo, Quan's throw animation is so long. That's going to be it for today's video. Expect much better Quan gameplay tomorrow when I do full sets. I'm going to spend the rest of the night just grinding, learning, labbing. So yeah, hope you guys are enjoying Quan Chi as well. Let's not sleep on him yet, but he is going to take some work and a whole lot of practice doing stuff like this. We're going to have to get creative.